Today's sponsor of the Vision Quest podcast is 920 Hat Company. Leather patch hats are in, and 920 Hat Company is here to hook you up with your very own custom hat. All patches are lasered on top-grade genuine leather and on popular brand hats like Richardson and FlexFit. Whether you're looking to show off your business or want a one-of-a-kind hat for yourself, 920 Hat Company can do it all. All the hats are handcrafted right in the Fox Valley, but worn across America. With over 500 hats in stock, they guarantee fast turnaround times. Honestly, Liam, looking at these hats, solid, right?
Yeah, they're pretty. I like them.
I like that patch itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one-of-a-kind stuff. I know his name's Trevor. He does great work. He's actually gotten I think we got a knit hat coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got that coming. So we're really excited to have these guys on board as a sponsor. So get down to check them out on Facebook. I believe they're on Instagram. Check them out, man. They got the best hats, I think, in the Fox Valley, if not in the state.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So get down to 920 Hat Company on social media and check them out. Boom. We're live. Just like that. It's like I told you. It's just instant.
Perfect.
So I know, right? So everybody, welcome back. We are live on X and we're live on YouTube. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, who is tuning in. It's a busy night. There's a lot of opening weekends this weekend. So a lot of people probably watching wrestling at this point, but I'm going to watch it later on because we have a great guest on right now. I know you as a freelance writer for Intermat. That's how I originally know you, but there's so much more. It is Madison Hollenbeck. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you've been dubbed the everything girl. We'll get into that, right? But just kind of an interesting thing. It's almost from the background of what I've heard. It sounds like you started out I went there as a manager, then I was in charge of social media, then I was in charge of helping these guys with classes, then I was in charge of. So we're going to lead into that because it takes a lot of balls to take care of all that stuff with a team full of guys. So let's start out first off, and just like we do with everybody, the beginning of everything that you remember growing up. Obviously, I don't know how many sports you played when you were growing up, but what were some of the things that you brought to the table before you got into wrestling? What were you doing?
Well, before wrestling, I wasn't doing anything really. Like I wasn't.
Nothing?
I didn't do sports as a child. I tried here and there. Tried gymnastics, wasn't for me.
Okay.
One thing I did stick with was musical theater. I was a musical theater kid for a few years.
Yeah.
And then that kind of ended. I didn't really like the direction it was going in. So and the boys in my class were like they were all starting to wrestle because it hit junior high and you were allowed to wrestle in 7th, 8th grade, and they were. And then there were girls that were already doing the stats, and I was like, I wonder how that works. And I mean, my uncle was the coach, so I was like, hey, how does this work? And he was like, don't worry about it. We have enough people to help out. You don't need to help out. I was like, well, I want to. And he was like, well, you're not going to. And we finally hit my freshman year of high school, and they were down a girl. And I was like, hey, I'm not doing anything. And he was like, no, there's too many boys and you should just focus on your homework because your grades are more.
I'm not going to say he's wrong.
He said too many late nights. He was like, you don't need to spend your weekends with other 14-year-old boys. It just doesn't need to happen. I was like, well, I won't be in it for the boys. Like, I don't care about the boys. I just want to be there. I just want to be involved. But he was like, he's like, I'll talk to your grandmother and then we'll discuss. So my girl was like, you really want to do this? And I was like, yes, please. She was like, I don't know, Madison, your uncle says there's too many boys. And I'm just not comfortable. Like, you're going to spend every weekend with all these boys? I said, yeah, but I don't care about the boys. She's like, how do you not care about the boys when you're there for the boys? And I was like, I don't know. It just somehow works, okay?
It's not that.
So
it is that, but it's not that.
Exactly. And so I had to ask the girl that was doing it if like I could join her. Like, we were kind of friends, but we weren't like that close. She was a grade below me. Well, she was like, oh yeah, like that's fine. She was like, whatever. And then everyone said yes, everyone agreed. I was in, and then that's where it started.
That's where it starts. So it's not an easy task. I mean, I just thinking of the managers that they have, and I kind of mentioned those before that are here in Kaukauna, like, and then I think of the boys that are part of the team, like, oh my God, that's going to be absolutely horrible. But I think at the same point though, too, I think most of the guys understand that if you mess around with the team manager, there's a lot of things that could happen that you probably wouldn't even notice before it hit you in the face. It's like, like, oh, you need your stuff washed. Oh, that's nice. Must be nice to want,
Well, it was funny because when I was doing it, we were only called stat girls. Like, everyone else that I was meeting, they're like, oh, they're the team managers, whatever. But I was just a stat girl. Like, they didn't want any more part of me than just me taking the stats. Like, I was strictly there for numbers only, the score only. Okay. And I think that's kind of where it started for you, where we're like, I liked all the wrestling knowledge. Like, I was looking up like the other teams and their records and the kids that were ranked in the state or on PAWrestling.com. Like, I was looking at that and it intrigued me. And my uncle, like, he was always in the boys' ears and in my ear, like, rankings don't matter. Everyone is beatable. Like, if that kid walked out in a black singlet and you walked out in a black singlet, you wouldn't even know who that kid was. If the internet didn't exist, you wouldn't know what he was ranked. He wouldn't even be ranked anything. Like, what does it matter? Right. And I was like, that's a fair point. That's a good point. And, but when I first started and I was serious about it, he was like, all right, then you come over to my house. I'm going to put on one of Alex's, which is my cousin, old matches. Yeah. You're going to score it. I was like, okay, so, well, like, how does that work? And he was like, no, you're going to sit there and figure it out. He didn't tell me how to do it. I had to sit there and figure it out for myself. I said, okay. So he's like, just watch the ref.
Oh, man.
And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, he's holding up all these like hand signals. And he's like, yeah, that's the score. I was like, okay, well, I don't know that.
Well, what is it though?
And then I had to learn the like pin times and everything else. And he was like, well, it's not backwards, it's forwards. You got to count. I was like, oh gosh. And he was like, I know you're not good at math. So I had to learn how to be good at math. That was like the only thing I was good at math about.
Yeah. Hey, that's all that mattered, really. I mean, that's in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So after that, then that's just, I think, like the little things of the knowledge of the teams and the coaches and who was a better team and who wasn't that good and who.
So you kind of got into the coaching side of it almost.
Yeah, like it was
just a taste of it right away, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, now I coach, but
yeah,
all of my coaching knowledge comes from mostly my uncle. Like, he taught me everything I needed to know. He still tells me everything I need to know. Like, he's there. Like, I call him up. I'm like, I have this issue, and he was like, well, do you remember this? And I was like, yes. And so we talk a lot about every issue you can imagine.
That's cool. So, I mean, and especially it's your uncle, right? I mean, it's not only an advantage, but you get to spend some time with a family member. Like, I mean, regardless who it is, mom, dad, uncle, cousins, I mean, everybody's got a different family dynamic, but you're able to number one, hang out with a family member, but you're also getting the insight of like the average kid wouldn't be able to get, right? Because you are his niece. So he's giving you this insight. He puts your feet to the fire with keeping score. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's a way different perspective than me asking, you know, like Nick Siriano, like, what was it like growing up? Oh man, I wrestled, I beat crap. You're like, no, I learned which coach did what type of strategy they did here. It's like, all right, man. So as you're starting to learn all that from him, were you noticing that you were starting to click with like, okay, oh wait, we got to do this, and then you're like, hey, hold on, we got to do this. He's like, you're right. Were you able to help that way?
Well, in my head, I did a lot of coaching.
Sure.
I did a lot of sideline coaching in my head because I didn't dare say it out loud.
Okay. Understood. Totally understood. Yeah.
One time I said something out loud about a kid needing blood time. Kid was like gushing blood. Ref wasn't calling it. I'm standing up at the stat table. You're like, blood. And the next day at school, all the boys were like, your uncle was so pissed that you were yelling that. I was like, well, guess what? I feel like if he was that mad, he would have said something to me about it, and he didn't. Right, so he's not that mad. But then shortly thereafter, he reminded me to not do that ever again. I was like, okay.
All right.
Got it.
Tight ship. I can appreciate that. That's all right. I mean, because otherwise you let things get out of control and everybody's telling them what to do. Like then everybody else is gonna be able to tell them what to do or expect to be able to. So I get it. So you're learning pretty well. You're learning a different angle, and it's kind of a side that I didn't get into until like, I mean, I wrestled, but I didn't understand wrestling, right? I mean, if I watched a match, sure, I could keep score. But as far as how things are now, it took, you know, getting my youngest Liam into wrestling and finally seeing him like, holy crap, like, I don't remember this. Like, what happened to just a double leg and a half Nelson? Why are we doing all this rolling around? What's this mat time stuff? So it's been a different ride as far as just kind of learning. And now I'm to the point, I'm right back to that point because now what he's doing, I have no clue. I'm trying to pay people to coach him. It's like, hey, can you come along just to do this? I don't want to mess them up. Like all the work that the coaches and stuff put in. So were you kind of learning a little bit of kind of the ropes of like how like each guy can last on your team? Like, oh, I know this guy can only make it for 2.5 periods.
Yeah.
After that, we gotta do this. Was that kind of helpful going into high school then? Were you doing the same thing in high school?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely caught on to like who was the better ones on the team. I didn't really know like when I started, I didn't know what made you good at wrestling. Like, how were you good? Like, and then like listening to my uncle have the conversations about wrestling, like I was like, all right, like people who can last longer on the mat are better. Mm-hmm. People who can stay on their feet. Like the one thing that's always been drilled in my head is like when you're in neutral and the guys like go to put their elbows on their knees and they're just there. And my uncle like drilled in my head, if I ever see that, that means you're lazy. If you're lazy, I'm not coaching you. So I used to tell my girls last year, like, I'm just letting you know if you put your hands on your knees at any point during your match, I'm walking out of the corner. I'm not coaching you. I'm like, that's lazy wrestling.
I can respect that. And I expect it's 110%, right? It's the same because I don't know the technique, but I at least expect 110% out of you. And that means going the whole distance. right? Not just hanging out with your, you're leaning on your knees and stuff like that. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. So what type of, as you obviously you were doing the same thing in high school. What was your high school team like? Were you starting to climb into a little bit of a different role in high school?
It kind of just all stayed the same. I didn't know what it was like outside of high school in wrestling. I was kind of into it. I went to my first college duel, which is at Penn State. I'm only 3 hours from Penn State. With my best friend at the time. Her dad was a season ticket holder, and we went. And I was like, "Oh, this will be cool." Like, I like wrestling, so. And at that point, it was just I like wrestling, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I like wrestling. That'd be cool." So we went, and it was unreal environment. Unreal.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, this is amazing. This many people like wrestling. Like, it was so crazy." And you saw people of all ages there. You saw little kids, you saw older people, you saw people my age, you saw parents and children. Like, it was crazy. And like they won in a absolute blowout.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I remember Bo Nickel was on my ticket, and I kept that ticket forever. I'm pretty sure I still have that ticket in my closet, and I saved it forever. And I was like, I love Penn State wrestling now. I love it.
That's the best part, I think, of the sport in general, is just because, especially when you get into it, and you don't have to ever have to compete in it or even done well in it to love it. I mean, because watching good wrestling, there's nothing better than that. I would rather watch a good wrestling than watch a good football game, right? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's just more exciting. There's more action. There's more, it's one-on-one and things like that. But then you also start kind of, just like we were Iowa fans for a while. I mean, now Liam he's committed to Virginia, so it's different. But because I grew up with the Brands brothers, right? Like that was my era. So, and Carver Hawkeye was the loudest place I've ever seen in my entire life, right? So it's the same thing. Once you feel that, it's almost like when you win your first tournament when you're young. Like, it's like you got that taste of blood and you want to keep going now, and like you got it in your blood and it never stops. And I think I've been that way just as far as a fan, ever since, starting Liam and even his older brother in wrestling. And as you kind of grew up in a unique area, obviously, for wrestling. I mean, the East Coast is where it's at, man. Like, you can't get any better. I would say from Ohio all the way over to, the Atlantic, that's kind of where it's at for wrestling. So where did you wind up getting? You said your first college duel was at Penn State. Where was your first national event that you ever went to? What was that?
My first national event was probably Nationals 2023. That was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the first one. It took me that long. I had been watching Nationals on TV since I knew that was a thing. For years prior to that. And but I was like, that'd be cool to go to. I was like, how do I get there? And I remember when it was in Pittsburgh and everyone was going, and I saw all my Snapchat stories. Oh, that'd be so cool. And I just and then it kind of just went away. I didn't think about it after. And then I was graduating high school, and I was like, I want to keep this wrestling thing up.
Okay.
And then I didn't know what it was like in college. I didn't have anyone else. I mean, my cousin wrestled at Teal College, which is a Division III school in Greenville, PA. And I went to a few of his matches when he got there, and I thought that was cool too. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I even looked for do they have sack girls? I was like, oh, what is this all what do you do in college with wrestling when you're me? And I didn't really know. And then I decided that I was going to go to Edinburgh, and I emailed the Edinburgh staff at the time, which was Flynn and Moore and Port. And they said yes. And then I was like, okay, great. I don't know what this entails, but we're gonna do it. And then I find out days later they're all leaving. I was like, oh, what do I do now?
Is that when you left for West Virginia? Yeah, you left for West Virginia.
And then weeks after that, they hired Hill and DePalma, and I was like, hey, can I have my job? They promised it to me, and I just want to know if I can keep it.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
They were like, yeah, just come for an interview. I was like, oh, like a legit interview. Okay. So I scheduled that, went in the heat of the borough summer, because boroughs get a little hot.
Does it?
It does get very hot over there. It also tends to get very cold. But I interviewed, they asked me my experience, and I was like, I've only ever took stats. I don't know what you guys are looking for, but that's all I've ever done. But I'm a quick learner. I will give myself that. I'm very organized.
Need it. Gonna need it.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, that'll work out perfectly. I was like, great. And then I started classes and I started helping there. And that's when we started all this social media back up because it had been really dated to like 2011.
Really?
I was like, guys, I was 11 years old in 2011.
Yeah.
I cannot help you with this part. So I did that and learned how to email high school counselors for transcripts
stuff. Yeah.
And
wow. You're just thrown right into it. It wasn't just here's a couple, athletic things you got to deal with. You're contacting people, you're doing all kinds of admin work. So just a quick question. Did you pick Edinboro just out of proximity? Was it close to you?
I looked at a lot of schools. My grandparents were very nice, helping with college tuition.
Oh, very nice.
And they were like, all right, so Alex went to Teal, and that's a private school. You have to pick something cheaper. I said, okay. So, because when I left high school, I wanted to move to New York City. I wanted to be a journalist at the New York Times, and I was going to live in the smack dab middle of the city. That was the goal. That was the plan. That was what I was doing. No one was changing my mind.
So writing's your thing. That's where this, because I was going to start asking that too. Writing is your thing. Okay. So it all starts to come together. Okay.
Writing has always been my thing. I've always been a writer. I used to sit in my kitchen when I was little. I would buy notepads every Sunday with my grandfather. Not toys, notepads.
Really?
And I would sit at the table and be like, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? And we would just spell words for hours. And my notebook would be random words.
Holy cow.
And
okay. And you're taking it all in. You're soaking all that in.
Yeah. And I was a word. I was a word guru. And then so I graduated and then I went to college and they were like, oh, here's all these responsibilities. I hope you know how to do them. If not, sorry, because I don't know how to do them either.
So what was your first year doing it? What was the most difficult thing that you ran across that year? What really kind of threw you for a loop and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this?
Well, I actually did get into it. I don't know if I want to do this. And I did leave for a little bit because it was a lot. And I would say not even the wrestling part was a lot. It was just like, I don't know how a lot of college athletes do it because from my point of view, it was hard just for me to go to college and then start a completely different life. Like everything you were living before, none of that matters. No one cares about it. It doesn't matter. Your life literally starts completely over. It's like, it happens so fast. You have no idea what you're doing. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I felt alone, but like super surrounded by all of my people at the same time. So it was a really weird in-between feeling. And it did get to be a lot. And I was like socially and mentally and emotionally and even physically, like it was just a lot. And so I did leave. I was like, I can't really handle all of this at once.
It's a lot. It is a lot. Because like I said, just knowing what the high school girls are dealing with, I can only imagine what a college team is like. And Edinboro's a great team. Don't get me wrong. Like I know Pat Lugo, all those guys have been at Edinboro. So it's not like it's a slouch team, But it's like at the same point though, too, it's like there's other things that they don't know about, like other people don't see you guys doing. Right. Yeah. And that's why, again, like I told you, that's why it's interesting to have you on, because it's a whole different perspective of what a wrestling team is like and how just as stressful that is. Right. Like it's not a walk in the park, especially when you're dealing with different personalities, and then you got the coaching staff and
no. So, and as I got older and more into as I found more of my place in the wrestling world, it became more of like a business for me. Like the way that you hear a lot of coaches, like it's a business trip. For them, it is a business trip. And for me, it's also a business trip because when COVID hit and I had withdrawn from Edinburgh and I went back home and I thought my life was over. And then I came back to school. It was like, I'm a lot older than everyone here. Not by a lot, but of course the team made me feel like I was ancient. So I was like, how I have to draw that fine line. Like, yes, I am a college student, but we are not friends. We like none of us are friends. Like this for me is a very serious. And as I got into it a little bit more with my first year back to school, after taking a 2-year break, I was like, oh shit, like this is my thing. So then it became like, yeah, we really aren't friends. Yeah. And like there was a lot of like, oh, what does coach think about me? What does coach say about me? Oh, like, oh, do you know when we're having practice? Oh, do you know what we're doing at practice today? And then it became like don't tell the guys what we're doing at practice today. I was like, I'm not like that with them. Your secrets are safe to me. Right. I don't care enough to tell them. But it was funny because the girl that I ended up doing stats with in high school became one of my best friends in the entire universe. I'm actually going to be the maid of honor in her wedding.
Nice.
And her brother went to Edinburgh to wrestle. So it was like a full circle moment because I'm only an hour and 15 minutes from Edinburgh. So
okay.
It was so funny like that. We all just kind of ended up at the same place. And then his sister ended up going to Penn State. So
oh, really?
It was just kind of all a 180. Yeah. It all worked out the way it needed to.
So it's interesting that you mentioned how you don't know how athletes can do it because the schedule that you had and how busy you got and just how chaotic it gets. What were you like? Were you at that time into writing classes? Like, what were you doing then as far as writing?
I mean, when I started freshman year, I started out with a psych class and then all my journalism classes. And I am not good at science or math. I'm very terrible at it. Don't ever ask me to help you with that. And when I had to have psych for my very first class of the day and semester, it was not going to go well. And then I failed my first psych test and I was like, oh, well, I suck at college. I might as well drop out now.
Oh. And
then I was like, no. And I didn't know how to study because whoever tells you that this is what you got to do to study, no one teaches how to study in college. Okay. No one teaches you how to study.
Right.
Like I had no idea how to study. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, how do you do this? And they were like, you just have to read the textbook. I'm like, okay, I can read and take notes.
I can do that.
But my psych professor told me, and I carried it the rest of college, if you do not understand the vocabulary of the course you are taking, you will never understand the class.
Oof.
So every single chapter, every vocabulary word, I made index cards. I didn't do like the little things on your phone. I'm such a nerd that I like to handwrite everything.
Liam. Same thing.
I like to make it as hard as possible on myself and stress myself out so much. I'm going to write everything out by hand.
Nice. Yeah. Well, writing it's memory that way. And then you got the card and you're doing some more memory work that way. Yeah. I mean, it all pans out. Really
and does. I mean, all the studies show that handwritten everything makes you remember everything. So
it's repetition. Right. Now that's a lost art, man. I'll tell you what. Can you write cursive?
It looks like a third grader did it, but I did learn it. I did learn it in 3rd grade, but it was a little iffy. So now I just sign like a doctor and pretend that it's my signature.
just really whippy right through.
Yes, exactly.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So you wind up going back. You said it was after COVID, right? You went back, and then so were you just thrown right back into it, or did you have help?
I when I knew I was coming back, I had already previously kind of been in contact with Coach Hill. It was kind of funny because my boyfriend at the time of when I was kind of wanting to go back to school was getting recruited by Coach Hill twice in his time in college. And I was like, and so he was texting me. He's like, "Hey, I heard so-and-so's in the portal." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Please tell me you don't want me to talk to him for you. Like, please don't use that card against me. Don't use me for that."
Please.
And he in fact did not end up going to Burrow, but and then I told Coach Hill, I was like, "Hey, I want to come back." And he was like, "We'll take you back anytime." And so then when I knew I was really coming back, that's when I was like, "Hey, like, I'm dead serious. I'm coming back. I want to be involved as much as possible. Let me know what I can do for you and how I can help." And then he just gave me a to-do list every single day for the next 2 years.
Well, that works out. So what year did you graduate?
College?
Yeah.
I just graduated with my bachelor's in May.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. I got my associate's last August, and now this May I finished my bachelor's. So I felt
in your major's journalism?
No, I actually changed my major 7 times in college.
Well done. Well done.
And my grandma did tell me that I had to stop changing it because it was getting very expensive for her. She's like, "Please stop changing your mind. Grandma. Just make up your mind." I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try." I was like, seventh.
That's awesome.
7th tries charm is whatever. Yep. And I finally changed it to interdisciplinary studies, which is general studies, because when I graduated in May, and still to this day, wrestling is what I eat, sleep, and breathe every day, no matter what I'm doing. Consumes my life, and I want to have that same feeling for the rest of my life. Like, I want to sleep, breathe wrestling forever, as long as I can in any way.
So you thought it out. That's what I was going to start asking. It's like, did you really think it through? You actually did. You did think it through. Okay.
And I was like, all my classes that I had go into this degree was going to help me in some way, shape, or form. Like, I had a little bit of journalism, I had a little bit of communications, had a little political science because wrestling, had a bit of education because you got to be educated. And so
therapist.
Yeah, exactly. I had social work classes in my degree. I was good to go.
You're set. So as you're going through your years of Edinburgh, you're getting all this experience, and then when does all this Intermat writing start? When did that start for you?
I went to nationals in 2023 with Edinburgh. Ryan Burgess was our national qualifier, and I remember coming outside of the tunnel right before they found me and kicked me out, and I was standing on the floor, and I was standing across from the Rachel Gallardo, and I saw her in her sequins, in her sparkle, and her glam, and in my head immediately I was like, I want to be her. I don't know who she is. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know who she works for. I want to be her, and I want to do that. That's exactly what I want to do. And she smiled at me. I was like, yep, we can be best friends. I don't even know who she is. And I didn't even know at the time, or that's when I started getting involved in wrestling Twitter. So I kind of knew who she was, but didn't know who she was at the same time. And then a month after Nationals has ended, I had seen Earl post on Twitter, "Hey, we're looking for extra writers for Intermat." And I was like, I'm in. So I DM'd him immediately. I was like, I am interested. Let me know. And he's like, I just need a resume. I was like, my writing of wrestling is dated because I used to write for our local newspaper covering our local wrestling while I was doing stats. So I was a stat girl in the match. And then after the match, I was a reporter. So, but yeah, I did that.
That's a good mix. That's a very good mix, that especially the experience you've already had in wrestling. So you already have some of the terminology, you already, all that. I mean, just the writing, it sounds like it's something that you love anyway. So it would become second nature. Right. So, So what was that instant? You sent him over the stuff. Was he like, all right, let's go write something?
We did a few interviews and he was impressed with the knowledge that I had. And he used to send us calendars of like, hey, like these are the events coming up. Like, let me know if you want to cover one of these. And I remember U20s and U23s is coming up. And I was like, all right, I'll just do a preview of the entire tournament. And I did it. I spent lots of hours, lots of long nights. And I sent it over to him and he was like, he posted it. He was like, it's great. I was like, let me know what I can change or whatever. And then he set up a meeting and he was like, I really thought that your first article would be about Edinburgh and just like be easy. I said, no, I don't do easy. And he was like, yeah, you have the biggest pair of lady balls I've ever seen to cover a tournament that big with your own opinion in this world of wrestling where everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, the older I get, the more I don't care what other people think of me. So
and you're only in your 20s. That's fantastic.
I was like, I'm just gonna write it.
I'm watching the next like at least 20, 25 years. This is going to get really good. It's going to get awesome. So when you're going like for you to cover an event, right, to write about or preview or whatever, do you prefer to go to the event to witness things, or are you okay with just kind of seeing what happens on, whatever you can catch on TV or catch, on streaming or whatever it is? What do you prefer when it comes to writing? Some people don't like to go to these stadiums, these places. They did. Oh God, I don't want to go to that place. They wish they would have done this at this place, like they did 2 years ago. Where do you prefer, at home, or do you like going there?
Well, it usually depends. I mean, I would say this past U20s, I interviewed the team after they had won their matches, and I was freaking out. Like, and I don't care how many people I interview in my life. I don't care who I'm interviewing. I don't care how long I've known them. I'm going to freak out every time. And I was sweating buckets interviewing these guys.
Headband on? You got to have like a headband on.
And I did like know some of them. Like some of them did recognize me from nationals previously. Like, and like I interviewed Bo Bassett, and Bo and I are kind of familiar with each other. We're both PA kids, and I met him at nationals, and I just went up to him and introduced myself. I was like, hey, I'm from Pennsylvania. I work with PA USA. We kind of are familiar with each other.
Yeah.
And so we had like that mutual understanding. So like when I went to go interview him again, he was like, oh, hey, how are you? I was like, oh, I'm good. How are you? So I was just like easy. But it can be really hard because then you have to look up the results for yourself and you have to kind of form your own opinion. I like to be there. So like if I am interviewing someone and then I have to write about it, it feels more authentic if I'm just there because I can really. So when everyone's like, oh, this was an electrifying match, was it actually electrifying because you were there, or you just thought it was electrifying because these two wrestlers are really good and they scrambled the entire time?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I like to go there because you'll actually know that I mean it.
Yeah. And totally. And I know sometimes like, I did like, I was more of a kind of like the writing guy when I was in high school. I should have gone to college, but I was not smart enough. But I did enjoy, like if I heard about a movie, I didn't want to I wanted to go watch it. And then like, I never needed to read the book. Like I was that guy. So I was always the face-to-face. So I'm kind of the same way. I like to be in the action or by the action to be able to kind of describe it better. It's just different now with technology, with so many things you can stream and you can just go watch it somewhere. I'm more of the fan that likes to smell like the popcorn. I can't remember who was saying Oh, I think it was Dan Gable. He said that you used to walk out in the hallway back in the day. You could smell cigarette smoke out in the hallway of a high school. I was like, that's different. But I just like being in the environment. So I agree with you on that one. What did you wind up gravitating towards the most? Do you like writing about the freestyle, or do you like writing about collegiate? Which one is your favorite?
I would say probably folk style. I have the most experience with folk style. I didn't even know that freestyle existed for a while. Way I don't want to admit that, but
I won't beat you up on it. It's
okay. To understand. And then my uncle was like, nope, there's 3 styles. I was like, there is. I was like, this is awkward. I just said I'm a wrestling fan. I didn't even know there were 3 styles of wrestling. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm a fake fan then.
Yeah.
I will say that in the past 2 years, I have gravitated, like, I really do appreciate every single style. And I know what everyone says about Greco, but I appreciate it. I
love it too. Yep.
And I will say that I have spent a lot of time at national events in the past year. Mm-hmm. And I've been spending a lot of time with SJ at USA Wrestling. Nice. And she loves Greco. She's a Greco girl. She's a freestyle girl. She knows all the little tidbits of every Greco team member, every freestyle team member.
Nice.
Almost every age group. And she's the one who was like, oh yeah, like she's so excited about it when she talks about it that it makes me excited. So I became more appreciative of all of the styles, but I just know folk style more because I've been doing it longer. Sure. And when girls wrestling became more popular and they were only doing freestyles, like I didn't watch girls wrestling for a while, even though they were doing it when I was getting involved, because I had no idea anything about freestyle.
Okay. Yeah.
So it took me a while to watch it, not because I have anything against it.
Right, right. Yeah. But you just wanted to understand it.
I had no idea. And of course, I was a little too young to like want to take more interest in it. And I just kept to my folk style because I was like, no, I love folk style.
Well, and that's the other thing though too, is like you were buried in folk style, right? Like, I mean, it's not like you're still you're in college and you're helping manage a team that's in folk style. It's not like you have any other time on your hands to be able to figure something else out either at the same time.
Oh yeah.
But, when you mentioned coaching, where are you coaching now?
I coach at my old high school.
Nice.
So I am currently in my hometown till I figure out what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah.
And my uncle sent me a job posting that they were looking for an assistant coach at the high school. And I was like, oh, this is weird. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to coach girls wrestling. I've never wrestled. I'm going to go coach girls wrestling at my old high school. And for me, it was different to go back there because my uncle was the assistant coach, but our head coach, he passed away in 2020 and he had battled cancer for a really long time. And I was like, he took me under his wing. Like his wife is actually my current boss. And to this day. And so she tells everyone, she's like, oh, this is Dean's protege. Like she like, this is the girl, like Dean and put all of his love of wrestling into her. And I did, like, I soaked it all up, like between my uncle and between Coach Jay, like I soaked all of it up. And so for me going back there, in a way it felt weird because of that, but I felt good going back because I was like,
yeah, it
would be cool. Like if Coach Jay was here and he could see that I was back here coaching, he would be like, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, it is crazy.
Full circle.
But it is nice to like put on wrestling shoes, as weird as it sounds, and like step on a mat. And I'm like, oh, this is weird to be here and doing this, but I'm happy to be here and doing this. And in our club that they built in my hometown, there's pictures on the wall, like as a memorial. And our first ever team picture that I was in at a tournament, with Coach Jay is hanging on the wall.
Mm.
So it was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I noticed it a couple, like I'd been going to the club now for 2 weeks and I just noticed it the other day. And I was like, oh, this is like, so I had a moment and we had like a team dinner in there the other night and the girls were like, is that you? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, why do you look like that? I was like, because I was 14. I was like, that's why I look like that. I'm like, you are all 14 right now. What do you mean? I'm going to ask you that.
Right. Yeah. Why do you look like how you look?
Yeah. Really. Okay.
That's awesome. So I guess I'm kind of curious, what was it like? Because I mean, you didn't wrestle, right? Like, I mean, you were in the wrestling room. So it's not to say that you didn't maybe mess around a couple of times and try to wrestle someone. It's not like you didn't do something, but now to be able to coach, that's kind of why I was curious about the whole analytical side. Like I know that you obviously have the brain and the knowledge to be able to kind of, put a person and put them out there in the right position and do that kind of thing because of who you learn from, right? Like,
yeah.
So what was that like then to put those shoes on aside from what you'd already done? Cause it's a whole different world.
Yeah. I would say that I've always been a watcher and I've always been a listener. Like people always ask me, like, they're like, oh, like name your best quality. I would always say like, I'm a good listener. I will listen to anyone. Okay. And I think it's just because I know what it's like to not be listened to and it sucks. So I always listen to everyone. And like, if you want to, I don't care what you got to say to me, I'll listen. And especially when it came to wrestling, like the more I got involved, the more I wanted, like, if I'm going to know it, I'm going to know it. And you're not going to tell me that I don't know it because I'm going to know it. So when I got into coaching, I actually started coaching last year was my first year. And I coach back in Edinburgh at the local high school there. And the head coach of the men's program, he came up to me after our youth tournament that we always host. And he was like, so I got a girls wrestling team. We need a coach. I said, oh, no. And he was like, why? I was like, I don't know wrestling like that. I never wrestled. He's like, okay, you don't need to wrestle to coach wrestling. I was like, I feel like you might be wrong. And he was like, no, I'm not wrong. He was like, there are plenty of coaches that coach and they have no idea. He's like, think of every sport ever. You think all those coaches have played that sport? Probably not.
Makes a very valid point.
I was like,
very valid point. They all started somewhere.
And of course, like the coach that I was going to coach under, he was like, did your uncle wrestle? I said, no. And he was like, and he's coaching wrestling. Imagine that. I was like, okay, you got me there. But one of the boys walked by.
Right? That's awesome.
One of the boys from Edinburgh walked by and he was like, Madison's going to coach wrestling. Madison doesn't know anything about wrestling. She's never wrestled. And he turned around and he was like, she doesn't need to step on a mat to coach it. And she was like, and Coach Cook was like, you're telling me you've been around wrestling for 11 years. You don't know a single thing. You don't know anything. You don't know how to get through a match at all.
Don't learn anything.
It was like, maybe I do know a thing or two on the mat.
Yeah.
And when I start, he's like, you just come to one practice. And if you hate it, you never have to come back. But if you love it, you have to come back. I was like, I'll go to one practice. I'm only going to one. I don't even have shoes. And he's like, we'll get you shoes. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I went to one practice. I was there for about 5 minutes. I was like, I think this is going to be okay. And I fell in love with it ever since. And the first night I was there, yelling at the girls. And they were like, it's only your first day here and you're already yelling at us. Why are you being mean to us? I was like, oh boy. I was like, if you think this is me being mean, we got a whole season together.
Oh, if you only knew. That's awesome. That's so cool. I mean, again, I talk to athletes and it's all, I competed here. I competed here. I competed here. You're a whole different side of it. Like I think I had a ref on a while back, but you had a whole different side of it. Right. And then you're diving right into the coaching portion. So now with where you're coaching at now, do you have aspirations? Like, because you like writing, you enjoy the journalism part of it. Do you find yourself, maybe, are you going to try and balance both of them and try and get to like an upper level of coaching then?
I'm not sure. I love writing, and I have come to find out that I love coaching. I wasn't going to coach this year because I didn't really know where I was going to end up, and I didn't want to commit to a team and then leave in the middle of the season. Like, I know a lot of coaches, like, they do see it more as a business, and they have no problem leaving in the middle of a season or the beginning of a season or at the end of the season. But for me, it was really hard. Like, it was really hard to leave the girls I coached last year. It was really hard to come into a new program this year. And I now have like signed and made the commitment to March for my girls now. And like, I intend to uphold that commitment. And for me, like, even like, I didn't want to even come in before a beginning of a season and be like, hey, I know we've only known each other for 2 weeks, but I want you to trust that I'm going to lead you to win on a wrestling mat. And I know that we don't know each other, but I just want you to trust me. Like, that's a lot to ask of a kid. And
it is.
I have trust issues as an adult, so I can't imagine as a child.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just a loaded question to ask of someone, even as an athlete. Like, hey, I need you to trust that I'm coming in here as a complete stranger, and you need to trust me, and you're wrestling. And for me, that didn't feel right. So I wasn't going to coach because I didn't know where I was going to end up. But now that I've now made this commitment, like, I'm locked in until March. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think in the way that it seems like you handle things, that it's not like you back away from too much. So, I mean, I can only imagine. That's why I was kind of curious. Like, you're going to take on both and like maybe step it up a couple notches with the coaching and still keep the freelance going. Cause it seems like you're able to, I mean, you were managing a college team, so it seems like you're able to balance a couple things. So,
yeah, I mean, last season, I think all at once I was team manager for Edinburgh, coaching girls wrestling, on the board of directors for PA USA, and I was freelancer for Intermat. Oh, and then when that ended,
well done.
When that ended in May, I was completely lost. Like, completely lost. I was like, I'm not busy anymore. What do I do?
Yeah.
I'm so bored. What do I do?
Yeah. So you've obviously heard again, I think your story is a pretty cool one as far as just the direction that you have decided to go and the things you decided to do. And that's what makes a lot of this portion, especially about what you've done, kind of unique compared to everybody else. Cause usually everybody else is the athlete, right? Or they're the coach. Now you came up in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like literally the trenches of wrestling. Like, I don't think anybody understands that aspect of what these guys do. It is the trenches of wrestling, because you don't see a damn thing that they do. Not one. You don't see it. You'll hear a coach talk about it. You'll be like, oh, Madison, she's my girl. She does this for me. She does this. You'll hear that. You don't see it.
No.
You don't see what time they're doing it at. Well, how long it takes them to do it. So kudos to you for doing that. And then now coming up into the position you're at now and coaching and being able to, bring some people into the real world and make them responsible people, and not just the aspect on the mat. Right. I mean, it's awesome, man. I coach JV soccer. It's the same thing for me. I'm making sure that these guys are taking life lessons, not only about what they're doing on the field, but also once you go out and get jobs and things like that, teaching them responsibility, teaching them respect and all that. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's a sport, right? And we want the kids to have fun with it. We want to win, right? As coaches, doesn't want to win. But we do have to keep that in mind. And I think it's important that you have a good head on your shoulders. You have a good background now, especially in the sport. I mean, at the analytical side, when you're coaching, that's everything, right? I mean, that's it. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a guy on. He's actually one of the coaches at Kakani here. He's the nerd. Like, he's the stats dude. He knows, he's from Indiana, but he did the same thing. He competed, but he started out with stats. Like, he started out just keeping scores and stuff. Then finally he got into it because he wanted to try it. So, but that's the nitty gritty stuff that I think people kind of underestimate. And I think a lot of people think that they can just do it. Yeah. Right. And you can't, because I mean, some people can. Obviously there's some people that can. You can't just do it. Like, oh, I'm just going to go and be a team manager. Oh, you are? Oh, okay, cool. Have at it.
And it's hard because I had to ask to be in the position, and like, proving myself in this position. And like you said, like, yeah, like there are coaches like, oh yeah, Madison does this, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you have like, I've had plenty of my own team ask me what my role is or what makes me so special that I can do this, or do I even know anything about wrestling? Who do I think I am? Like, I've gotten those. This won't be the last time I ever hear it either.
I'm sure.
But and like, it's funny that you bring up like we shape the humans that we coach, because one thing that, again, I've always learned from my uncle is he always said, like, yes, I want them to be good at wrestling, and yes, I care about winning, but no one cares if you were a good wrestler if you were a shitty human being.
Right.
Like, no one cares if you're good at wrestling if you aren't a good human. And last year I told the girls, like, soon as I began coaching them, like, I was like, I don't care if you lose every single match during the season. I really don't. But I do care if you're a good person outside of it. Yep. And if you're not, then it's not even worth it.
Yep. That's right. I mean, the sport builds that in the sport. I mean, any sport can, if you're dedicated enough, it's going to do that to you. I think the commitment, I think that coaches show is something that kids see. And it's like kids like Liam wants to coach, like after, with his high school coach and the coaches that he's got now, and seeing how those guys are, and they really enjoy it, made him enjoy it that same way. Right. So that's infectious. So, again, it is about winning. It is about making them better. But at the end, as long as they're doing something that makes them happy and they're doing it well, hopefully that sport and that coach helped them pave the way to be happy that way. Right. So much appreciation to you. I do want to bring up one thing that I've been talking to a lot of people about. You might see me posting about it on Twitter once in a while. This whole NCAA debacle. What the hell is going on with teams? Like, there are so many like colleges right now that are dropping teams like wildfire, like sports like wildfire right now. And it's some of the most obscure things, right? Like, I don't know. Like, some of them are track and field, but I can't even remember the last time I heard about that college having track and field, like, do anything. Right. So I get it. But as like the small schools, so we all hear about Power 5, right? And all the big guys that are going to foot the bill. You went to Edinboro, not a huge school, right? What are things that are coming down the pipeline for little schools like that you're hearing about?
Well,
everything's vague.
Yeah, it's hard. I would say, like, I mean, I'm going to be on my high horse here, but
you go for it.
NIL started it.
Yep,
NIL
correct.
is going to be the one that finishes it.
Yep.
And small schools can't compete. Like, we can't compete with the money that you have or the tactics that you're using to recruit, even though it's literally against NCAA regulations. But no one is going to talk about that.
Right.
No one's going to talk about all the schools that break the rules. No one's going to talk about all the donors that text and call athletes to offer them the bags. No one's going to talk about that part.
Right.
I will. No one else will.
Yep. There's a guy named Bob, I think, out there that does it, I believe.
And so, and now it's NIL, it's Title IX. It's no donors willing to spend their money anymore. It's donors want to fight for the program. Like, people always make jokes all the time of like how Edinboro will go back to D2. I'm telling you right now, our donors will never let that happen. Like, donor, like, you got some serious donors, and they are not going to let Edinboro go back to D2.
Yeah,
that's what's happen. But
yeah, there's a lot of doom and gloom, I believe. But and here's the thing. I'm not trying to vilify like schools or like their athletic directors really only have so much control. And I'm not even really trying to vilify schools, but a lot of these schools didn't want half these sports around anyways when COVID hit. So this is almost like a rebound from COVID because there was a time when they wanted to drop down to 8 teams. Like, a lot of schools were like, well, we'll just go down to eight different sports. That sounds like a nice, I don't know how they came up with that number. I didn't read that far into it, but I'm just on the worried side when you start talking about revenue, right? Like revenue is the big thing because, Penn State's got a great wrestling team, but what was the revenue, like 1.8 million or something like that? I think one year was, but Iowa was the same. So those guys are the big numbers, but you get a school like Michigan that bring like their athletics. That's their money machine is their athletics, right? So almost everything at Michigan would survive. But when you start talking about the small schools, don't you think that without the roster changes, some of these kids would then wind up kind of dispersing and going to those smaller schools and making a team better, a little more competitive to be able to bring the crowds in? And because that's what I'm pushing right now. I'm telling everybody to stop subscribing and start going to these events. Start paying money to buy a ticket to get into the place. That's fine if you got to stream if you're not in town or if you're someone that lives far away, but getting butts in Edinburgh and getting butts in wherever, Bucknell, it doesn't matter where it is, buy the tickets. Because I think I feel like, and this is what I've heard, is that some of these sports aren't necessarily going to go away, but they're going to turn into like a club sport. You know what I'm saying?
And it's absolutely true. Like, and especially like schools with powerful football programs are the ones that need to watch out. Like, they are the ones that should be worried. And right now, like, school like Edinburgh, like, we don't have a powerful. We have a Division II football program, and it's not that powerful. So we don't really have anything to worry about right now. But with the roster changes, it kind of looks better for us because now people. I mean, maybe people still will go to Penn State and Iowa and Wisconsin and sit the bench, whatever they want, and just be on a Big Ten team and say that they're a Big Ten wrestler.
Right.
But there are some people who actually want to do something with their wrestling careers. And if they can't start there and get a scholarship, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Every
recruit that I've ever met, because that's what else I was doing in helping Edinburgh, is I was helping their recruit trips. I have met many recruits. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to come to Edinburgh. I mean, I'm always going to tell everyone to come to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you to go to a school where you can start at. If you don't feel like you can start there, if you actually want to wrestle in college, go to a school you can start at. And if you don't feel like you're ever going to start there, if you're going to sit 4th-string wrestler, don't go. If you actually want to wrestle, because you're never touching the mat.
Ever. Like ever. Maybe in an open. Maybe they'll throw in an open somewhere, and that's about it.
I was like, you will never be a starting lineup wrestler for them, representing them. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Or
you're not lying.
You can be a Penn State non-starter, get a championship ring, and be like, I wrestled at Penn State. And they're going to be like, who are you? And exactly.
Right.
I'm like, you can do that too.
Yeah.
It's just the schools with big, like, it's going to help eventually. I mean, Edinburgh and Clarion kind of right now are in a spot because we're combined.
Are you?
So, like, we're Penn West Edinburgh, Penn West Clarion. We got that stupid Penn West. Sorry, Penn West. We got the stupid Penn West attached to us now. So, Clarion gets hit, we get help. We get hit, Clarion gets help. Like, it just, like,
interesting.
It's very touch and go. And the small programs are going to hurt more if they have really powerful football teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I've noticed too, is as far as, anybody saying that they have to reassess their, what experience they're bringing to the athletic student kind of thing. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you, like, that's what I'm talking about too, with the gray area. Like, they're not, the athletic directors are barely getting enough information just from the presidents and the admins of the schools, because when you go and talk to coaches about it, they're like, we don't even really know what's going on. How do you not know? Like, well, I don't get it.
And two, I think a lot of that is like, they do know, but they don't want to be the most hated person ever. And I have unfortunately been on the end of wrestling Twitter that wants to absolutely demolish your entire humanity. And if you are an athletic director for wrestling specifically, or you are athletic director in general, and there's something that you've done to wrestling and wrestling Twitter finds out about it, hide, because they are ruthless. and they do not care.
Yes.
So none of them care.
They are.
Your personal life, or what you're going through, or what you're having for dinner. They do not care.
Nope.
They will ruin your life. So, but it just depends.
It's like, the Wild West. And like you said, NIL started it, and it was, hey, the guys that got and I said this before, the guys that have gotten the $1 million, $5 million, whatever it is that they got, great, enjoy it, because pretty soon, student athletes are going to be basically employees of the school.
That's what a lot of them are. And I have said before, like, I don't know where it got lost in translation, where we stopped caring about people. Like, these athletes are straight up dollar signs to everyone now. And a lot of them don't care. I'm like, oh, you don't have self-respect? You look in the mirror and you also see dollar signs? Like, I'm sorry, but you couldn't pay me to do half of what these athletes are doing. You couldn't pay me to leave my school and then do whatever you want. Like,
it's an odd environment, because on one hand, you have coaches that are saying, it's hard to trust athletes because they're a good coach. Like, they want to have a great team. They go out and try to find the best kids, but then you're talking about like the kids that are just looking at dollar signs, and they're not very loyal. But you also do have the coaches that are out there that are not loyal, because they also get incentives for making it and having guys go to the NCAAs. Like, there's a bonus for that, not just for getting good grades. These guys, when their athletes perform, they get more money, right? So you also run into the mix where the coaches aren't very loyal. They're worried about getting their bonus paycheck as well. So it's hard. And that's why I always empathize with the athletes now, especially going through the recruiting process, because and right now, how do you know what decision to make and how soon do you make it? Right. And that's why we told Liam, with all this stuff going on, you're going to want to make a decision sooner rather than later. So that way you're locked in with someone, you already know what's going to go on. But even now, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I've seen it, like, a lot of high school seniors, like, they'll get all these like small little offers, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait until after state to see what happens. That is the worst possible thing a senior in high school could do, is wait until after state. You know why? Because there's no more money. Nope. All the money you were just offered has completely been gone, because the portal opens and everyone wants to transfer. And if you get upset or anything happens at states, all your offers gone. Like,
now you're a walk-on.
So how about you just make your decision when you start getting all these offers to begin with, and then work it, because we can still work with you. Like, sweet little Landon Bainey that went to Borough this season, he made his decision in summer. He committed at the very beginning of the school year, and then he had a poor state tournament. Probably no help to wrestling Twitter. And he still came to Edinburgh on all the money that he was already given, and all the scholarship, the part of the scholarship that he was given, with no issue. And now he is just fine. He is just fine. He is outperforming expectations.
Awesome.
That most people have had for him, and he is doing just fine, and he's doing great. And he is placing at college opens as a freshman. Like, so nice. Like, don't wait. It's not, it's so detrimental. Everything that you think that you're going to have at the end, you're not.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. It goes away. And I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's another good reason why I talk about this a lot. So again, we're going to talk about it tomorrow, is just because there's an eye-opening portion of this that I think a lot of parents don't understand. And because they're along for the ride with their kid is going to make the decision ultimately, but you have to feed them the information correctly. Because I mean, I'll tell you right now, when we're slid over an offer from a college coach, Liam's looking at me, like this. He doesn't know. He has no clue what he's looking at. So parents really need to start paying attention and start reading and what's going on today in sports, especially today, because it's going to get crazier. And then it'll wind down. It's like you said, eventually it'll wind down. People are going to complain about whatever's going on, and some people are going to be like, it's the best thing ever. But parents need to really read right now, read between the lines and ask for help, because some of this shit is not understandable.
No. And I've met a lot of parents in the past 2 years that some of them think that a lot of colleges have the same paycheck. Like they think that we all have the same checkbook and we're going to give you all the same money. I'm telling you right now, Edinboro University is not giving you the same paycheck as Penn State. That's not happening. We're not even giving you the same paycheck as Clarion. Like, it's just not, it's not happening. And they do truly believe that everything is the same at each college. And a lot of the first time generation college students with their parents who have never been to college have no idea what to expect. And neither do their parents. Their parents have so many questions. And I'm like, you have to read everything. You have to do research. Like, luckily, when I was at Edinboro, I've been here since the Stone Age. I can tell you everything about this university at this point.
Yeah.
After I give you all of my information, then you can go along with whatever you need to.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting time. It's something that is definitely going to be, I'll be grateful when it's done, when it's figured out, when people know what's going to happen. You know, in the schools, I doubt they're going to make the decisions in the time frames that everybody expects them to. But as long as this court crap can get over with, I think a lot of people at least have some questions answered, because then you have a document you can go to that stays the same thing instead of it changing, you know, after 3 months because they scratched some stuff out and the judge took stuff out and she didn't like certain things. The NIL had to change. And so hopefully they petered it out and level it out so we can understand what's going on. But, you know, we've been going on for about an hour now, right? A little over an hour and 10 minutes. I am appreciative of the time that you took to sit down and talk and get to talk some shop here at the end, because I was really kind of curious as to what your thoughts were on it. And obviously we're coming from the same place. It's NIL that started it. But I appreciate you coming on, sitting down. I'd love to have you back on sometime in the future. Obviously, I'll be paying attention to what you got going on social media, and hopefully you do likewise. It got any shout outs? You got anything coming up that you got going on? Anything you want to put out there?
Not that I can really think of. My girls and I start our season December 7th. Nice. So we got that going on. The Keystone Classic is this weekend. I know Kevin McGuigan is very excited.
Yes.
And I wish I could be there. Yeah. And I just can't wait to see all my women in wrestling in nationals next March, or this March, I guess.
Well, good luck to you in coaching. We'll be, like I said, we'll be watching and we'll be paying attention. If you got anything going on, let us know. We'll put it out there for you. But typically we see what you got going on. We'll make sure we share stuff. So everybody, it's been Madison Hollenbeck. She is the everything girl. But in particular, she freelances for Intermat. So go check out Intermat, check out her articles. I believe you actually have a whole list of them. I think it's in your bio, isn't it? Where you click on it, it takes you just to your articles.
I'm not sure. I probably should do that. But if you look up the authors on Intermat and you click on all of our names, it'll give every article we've ever written.
I'll find the link to that. It'll be in the YouTube description and stuff like that, so people can find it too. So, but much appreciated. I'm going to hit the music. I'm going to talk to you for a minute. I talked to everybody just when we're done, but I'm going to hit the music, and everybody catch up tomorrow morning. We're going to be going at 9 a.m. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing at 9 a.m. We're gonna go at me and Zach Pearson. He's the Wisconsin Grappler. We're going at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. It's going to be on YouTube and it's going to be on X. We are going to see you in the morning, and for now, peace the F out.
All of our episodes are brought to you by Appleton Tattoo, located at 117 South Appleton Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, right off the main drag on College Avenue. You can't miss them. I've had some work done. I have a Celtic cross that covers my back that was done by Jason. We're not done yet. Jason Winans and crew, the artists that he have there, those guys are the best in the Fox Valley. They are definitely one to go to if it's something that you've just been kind of throwing around. They'll make you feel comfortable. It's a very clean environment, very nice crew, and very willing to get done whatever you need done when you need it done. You can message them on Facebook. I know they're on Facebook. You can give them a call at 920-604-8289 and get in touch with Jason Winans and crew at Appleton Tattoo, located again in Appleton, Wisconsin at 117 South Appleton Street, right in Appleton. Very flexible hours, great crew, clean environment again. I would not send you anywhere else except for these guys. Appleton Tattoo.